Let's go. Let's roll.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Hit Confirm, episode 25. I'm Casey, joined by my co host, Coach. And we have somebody who was here before, the ultimate, the Tricky.
yeah,
He was here before.
yeah. Talk about the good old the VF. But we got him here for a different reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad he joined us because this is something important. But before we get started, I want to do something for Tricky. So
Ooh,
for
Mm.
exactly 60 seconds, I want you to do the thing that you didn't do last time is tell the world
Oh,
how much you love Eileen, starting now.
I, so Eileen's like the best character in the game. She can cancel any move into most moves into any other moves. So she's like a Street Fighter character put um into a 3D game, but like before Tekken did that, right? Because they have actual 2D character with 2D mechanics, but she gets it within her strings. So it's dope if you like hitchhiking into like low forward into Hadouken, then you can play Eileen because you can hit check her 1P plus K or 3P on counter hit, cancel that into a Hadouken. But instead of a Hadouken, it's core circle forward, kick, or core circle back KG. All right, that's my. Oh, and she uses monkey style. Like, come on, man. Come on.
yo, that was. So you mean to tell me I could press mad buttons with her?
Yeah, you can just press buttons and hit check and like do Hadoukens. Who doesn't like doing Hadoukens?
Yo, oh no, I just been messing around with Haas and Guilty Gear. I'm all for characters that press buttons.
Oh man, yeah, your minute's up, and I'm disappointed you didn't say she was cute.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, man. You got to level up your game, buddy.
All
I
the
mean,
fellow
she's.
Eileen players, they're gonna be so disappointed in you now.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying. They know everyone knows Eileen's kawaii as
Hey,
AF.
some people
Like,
never seen her before, man. You got to sell her.
oh, you're right. You're right.
But hey, it's
You're
too late
right.
now.
My
So
time.
I appreciate that, Tricky. But the real reason, I guess, actually we could shoot the breeze just a little bit because we got a little bit of news this morning. Um,
Hmm.
the Korean rating board rated that there's gonna be that Sega's coming out with a game called Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. Now that we don't have any specifics, but some people are saying port, some people are saying an expanded update. There's a lot of things going on. Let's get your thoughts real quick, Tricky.
Yeah, I've been chatting with some folks, and a lot of us, at least I'm thinking that it's going to be a game balance, a rebalance of the game, if nothing else. And there might be a visual update as well, like the that trailer that came out not too long ago, where you saw the new Akira model. They might introduce that as the new model for all the characters in the game. That would be really unique, and I've never seen that happen before. But um, that might be what they do. I'm actually a little confused, but I'm expecting it to be a rebalance, a revision of the game that's still based in the Final Showdown, closely based to the Final Showdown um, framework or mechanical system, because they're calling it Ultimate Showdown as opposed to some brand new name. So Showdown's still there. It also could be a compilation of 3 games of like R, Vanilla, and and Final Showdown. I was talking to someone and he was saying that might be what's going on. But I'm gonna go with it's a new revision of the game. I think it's a new revision, not a whole new number entry, just a revision. See,
Hopefully we get some official news down the pipeline now that we've gotten the rating reveal. That's usually
yeah, I
how
hear.
it works.
After I heard Korea tends to be. I think you were the one telling me that, wasn't it? You?
Yeah, I wrote that down on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see it a lot where they'll rate a game and people are like, "Oh yeah, I guess it's coming now."
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited. I made a little video about it earlier, but I'll make a new one whenever I find out some new information for sure.
I'm going to sound like a real casual here, but I can't wait to see those graphics.
I know,
Oh
Because
man.
Virtual Fighter has always had like some of the best graphics in fighting games, so I'm very hyped for it.
bro. Imagine the new Eileen model. Imagine how beautiful
Even
that's
more
gonna be.
kawaii. Ooh.
Oh
Oh
my
man.
god.
You people. You people.
Uh, and like the new clothing physics and everything. I just, oh, my heart.
All right. Well, all that aside, we got I guess I would say I guess a more serious topic. Nothing too
Hmm.
insane, but what you probably all here for. So the basis of this episode is going to be about mental health and how it relates to the I guess the hobby of fighting games, whether it's competitive, playing online, and all that stuff. And so we're going to be touching some a little bit harder topics. So I just want to put out there that we don't want to make light of anything that anyone may be going through, and hope that you guys take care of yourselves and all that. But I'm gonna get the floor to Tricky, and he can tell us why he's here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think when we talk about mental, so like y'all know, um, I do counseling work, right? Like, in my main gig, I'm an extern. I'm about to be an intern next year, actually. In a few months, I'll be starting as an intern. My final year as a counseling psychology doctoral student, and so I work under like my supervisor's license for the past like that's maybe like 5 years now since I've been doing that. And yeah, mental health is important, and it requires some reverence, but like it doesn't have to be heavy at the same time. Like so, I don't I don't think we have to um, be like super heavy about it. Like we can still be glib, we can still be like ourselves in the way we've been talking up until now about mental health, even though it's a heavy topic at the same time. Um, because I think that can make it like scary, and just mental health not scary. It's like cleaning your shoes or like getting a physical checkup, but it's for your brain, for your emotional health, because that's I think us fighting game players, we spend a lot of time in our heads in some ways because we're constantly trying to like make mix-ups. We're trying to make sure we're not doing the same thing over and over again. Not we're trying to make sure we're not doing the wrong thing over and over again, right? Because that's how our opponents get reads on you. And so that process of being able to be aware of one's thoughts, one's patterns, and one's errors, or in a way, uh, and one's wins. That's all kind of a part of mental health. And sometimes if you get stuck only focusing on your losses, only focused on what you're doing wrong, that can be bad. Um, and I know we have some like points here, right? Uh, I know one of our questions was, is it okay if I refer to our questions?
Oh no, go. I have no problem with it.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So one of the questions was like, why is lack of self esteem like so common in players? And I think it kind of ties back to that. There are a couple of things. There are a bunch of them, but one of them, the first one is, well, like, what are you focusing on when you're playing? Are you focusing just on like your mistakes, your errors, or are you also focusing on like what you're doing right, what you're doing well? And um, I think because when you're trying to get better at a game, you know, you're gonna do a lot of things wrong. You're gonna do most things wrong, actually, and you're gonna do things wrong for a long time. People are gonna blow you up for that. So and just humans generally, we have we're overly biased toward negative information. So you need like roughly 3 times the amount of good interactions to cancel out one negative interaction, more or less. So if you're focusing on like one mistake you made, you should be looking at 3 things you did correctly, like afterwards. And then another thing you did wrong, and then another 3 things that you did correctly. So like I know like there's a sentiment of like don't gas yourself up or like don't think too highly of oneself. But I actually think fighting game players need to do that maybe more so than they realize because of how much negative information we're already getting. Like when you lose, or when you make it, or especially when you lose. If you look at like rage quitting being a big problem in some fighting, like DBZ has a rage quitting epidemic, from what I've heard and from what I've experienced a little bit of. But a lot of fighting games have this problem where like we get really angry, and then you like pull the plug, and you don't want to take that out. What's that about? Like, um, now you could say the person's just they got mad, they got salty, and so they didn't want to take that out. They want to take it away from you, who like you deserve that win. That's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it is that like that person was turns their ego, their self-esteem, their sense of self, like is so tied to them winning at this game. And they can't handle this idea that they might not be as good as this thing as they like think they are, or they believe that they are. And any kind of chipping away at that is gonna like be soul crushing for them, right? That's I know we can like just say, oh, haha, stop, you guys salty, whatever. But it's really not about the salt. It's actually like this person's sense of self is being crushed right now, and like I think that needs to be understood and like not like that part shouldn't be taken lightly. There's a person he was hurting like a lot. So that idea ties to this another point I wanted to make about like self-esteem among players. And it's this question of like, why do you play the game? And there are many reasons to play the game. It's fun. Well, what do you find fun about it? Winning, maybe. Okay, that might not be the long-term, sole healthiest reason to be playing the game. Because there are going to be times when you're going to lose. Most of us lose more than we win, especially if we're getting better. And even when you get good at a game, quote unquote, there's always somebody who's going to beat you anyway, right? Unless you're like at the very, very pinnacle at the top. And even then, you're not going to stay there forever. There's going to be somebody new who's going to come and take your spot. So it's hard to stay at the very top for very long. Um, so the question is, why do you play the game? Is it to gain a sense of self-esteem? Is it so that you can feel like, hey, I'm good at something? Like everything else in my life might be all kind of messed up, but at least in this game, I got some area in my life that like I feel like I have control, and I feel like I like matter and I mean something. Uh, when that's your reason for playing, it can become dangerous. If that's your only reason for playing, it's a great feeling, but it can lead to, well, if you're not doing well, then you're like nothing, and if that's the only thing you have, um, it can lead to you feeling really badly about yourself, and it can lead you to some dark paths. So it's all great to gain meaning from a game or to gain meaning from a community, but I would say try to make sure you're finding more than only that. Um, because there will come a time when that won't be the case. And when that does happen, you don't want to be left with nothing. Um,
I,
Plaskin, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's I think that's actually a huge reason is having just one reason hurts a lot. Me personally, when I first came into the community and I was playing fighting games, I actually had the weirdest goal ever was to, or some people have had this goal, but basically is to make my opponent so pissed off when they play me, and I just start laughing, I just start having fun and everything like that. So my main goal was actually to have fun, but to make my opponent super pissed off. But that main goal was my only goal.
Yeah.
So when it was situations where I couldn't frustrate my opponent, I find myself getting kind of frustrated, and I found myself actually getting more competitive than my opponent. And I remember before going into fighting games. I was like, I'll never be this competitive, even though I'm playing competitive. I'm never going to have that competitive mindset. And what's funny is I've done competition in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and w- what you have to do in order to not stay in that mindset is to, like you said, have more than just one reason.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest reasons that helps branch off into other reasons or other like ways to like, enjoy and just not have a huge emotional effect on me in fighting games is the reason of discovery. So that's like the first thing I lead by. By having discovery, it just makes a huge web. It's all right, cool. I can discover a new combo. Oh, cool. I can discover a new like situation, or I could just even discover just multiple things. When you have the mindset of discovery, winning is not the only option. Having fun is not, if funny enough, is not just not the only option. It's just like I said, discovery is it's very cliched word to like use, but it really helps with the emotional state. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would say also would say one of the big things that's helped me out whenever I've played, because there have been plenty of times where I've lost to so many people, so many like games and casuals, and we'll play in tournament, and I either will beat them or they were like just barely win. And I always noticed that there are more emotional in me in the match. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Whenever me and the Georgia crew would go to tournaments, the way I would handle tournaments was I would make sure I wouldn't think about the game as much. Now, this is super cliche. I don't know if you heard this before, but I don't think people really elaborated on it. What I mean by don't think about the game as much is like is don't put too much emphasis on like on the reason, on your number one reason. Uh, like I said, think about something other than the game. You know, so if you're if you're up for a match, don't think too much about the matchup. Don't think too much about the player. Don't think too much about even what your character is doing. Because I say that because especially if you're playing competitively, um, at that point your muscle memory is already there. What you can and what you can do is you can't do more than what you already know in that moment. There are going to be very small situations where you'll outdo you might change up things, you might surprise yourself, but for the most part you can't do more than what you already know or what you already seen. So by taking yourself outside of the game when it's time to play and not being too not harping yourself on too much on what to think about, that leaves things open. So now when you play, situations that you've seen before feel new, but at the same time they're like relevant enough for you to like as a reminder so they stick out to you. So you're able to retain the information better. That's how I've approached things. Whenever I kill the like of course the nerves are still there. The nerves will forever be there. But that's how the games don't affect me emotionally because I'm able to take myself out the game. I even will sometimes look around and I'm like, hey, what I want to eat. What do I want to eat? It's so simple. Oh, cool. That I'm looking at the other game. That's pretty cool. Oh, cool. I'm looking at the other player play his set. Oh, he plays that color with that character. That's really nice. Don't think too much about like your game that you're playing because you put yourself in. You dig a hole for yourself in the player to the point for where you give yourself these expectations, and like you said, you'll never be not never, but you'll. It's very rarely that you'll play the way you want to play. Even the top players that win the tournament, they get interviewed. Most likely, they're like, they're kind of like, oh, I can't believe I took it. Like, I know I've been training for a long time. I mean, I'm happy to see results, but they know in the back of their mind that like they still didn't wasn't able to play at their best. Sometimes you see people play at their best in casuals or something like that. You're not going to always play at the best when you want to play your best. So the best thing to do is not to be too much invested emotionally. Your hands your muscle memory would do the talking for that part. um and just like don't think, like I said, don't think too much about that specific situation. I know this character, I know this matchup. Just pre ease out of the game. Um, think about other things like like I said, food or anything else like that, and you'll notice that the reminders will hit, and they'll speak. It's like a whole nother. You'll be on a whole nother plane. It's a very weird experience. But if anybody has done anything else competitive outside of gaming, and you've stuck with something for years, you know this feeling. Um, I was talking to somebody who does MMA, and though MMA is much more physical than playing fighting games, the mental is just the parallels are like right up next to each other. There's a lot of relatedness to fighting games and in mixed martial arts. Um, and you have that training there to like the biggest part of training is like half of it is like the mental part, not letting it stress you out.
Hmm.
So yeah, stress is a big factor, but yeah, you can't let it get to you. So yeah.
Yeah, and some folks, play fighting games to release some stress, right? So like you had a stressful day, stressful week, and you might be like, okay, well, I'm gonna turn the game on and just beat up on some folks, or just throw some hands, and that can be a great way to release some stress. Um, as long as you know what you're doing. Where it can get tricky is if it turns into you play release some stress, but then you find yourself getting really angry while you're playing. And like not angry in the way where like you're like, damn, I dropped that combo. I get it next time. It's more like, damn, I dropped that combo. I always drop combos. I'm never gonna be able to get that combo right. And like you go from this bad thing just happened to making predictions about what's going to happen in the future when that situation comes up again to making predictions, not prediction but like declarative statements about what that means about you as a person because of that. And like that's where these negative feedback loops kind of come into play, where one bad thing happens right now, and then you start worrying about, well, what's happening in the future, well, and what's happening in the past, and then what, how you're like worthless as a person or as a player, or like how your skills are just bad because you dropped that combo, and you always drop your combos, and you always drop your combos against certain players. Like it becomes this very what we call all or nothing thinking, and it's an important thing to notice about your thinking if you see that happening. And uh, like I actually think playing fighting games, the mental part, like what you're saying with the MMA too, can be one's awareness of your mental state while you're playing a fighting game because of how intensely you feel because you're getting hit in the face, metaphorically, can be really good cue to gain emotional awareness of yourself, especially these negative emotional states in the moment. And like, it's important to notice, like, damn, I just got hit because I did this thing and it feels bad, or it feels whatever feeling you have. And then you can use that as a guide for the future. It can give you information. That's what emotions are. Like, they serve a, well, so this is not a controversial idea, but it's an academic idea that's being discussed. So we don't like know 100% yet about this, but there's a theory of emotion in humans is that we develop them as a way to gain information. So all of our feelings are telling us something that is important to us. Um, so like a reason why people who get depressed get like end up having that feeling is because like our brains are trying to solve a problem, but it can't. It can't solve it. It can't fix it. It can't like address it. So you end up kind of turning it on yourself in a negative way. And part of treatment ends up being a lot of times figuring out what those negative spiral loops are for people who can be, who talk therapy is useful for. Because some folks need to have medication so they can kind of get out of that really, really the worst of it. And then you can talk with them, and then help them, get out of that. Um, very really negative mental feedback loops that need to be broken because something's gone awry, something's gone off. Same thing with anxiety. Uh, Anxiety is important. You know, if you're out in the bush and you got you think you see a line in the corner of your eye, you better, or just the fact that you know there are threats in your environment that are, threatening and life threatening specifically, you should be anxious, right? Because it's protecting you. But in like our modern day, a lot of things make us anxious that like we can't do anything about right now, like immediately, like bills or getting that job or whatever thing might happen in the future, as opposed to an immediate threat that's happening right now, which you can address something right now, but you can't address something that's coming in the future right away. So you're still going to have that anxiety feeling, but it's something that's happening in the future, or you're regretting something that happened in the past, and now you're worried about how it's going to affect you in the present and how it's going to affect you in the future. So it becomes this worry. So what that emotion's trying to tell you is, hey, pay attention to this thing. It's super important. Focus. It's trying to like slap you into focus, but it can go into overdrive and cause problems. So when you're fighting in a fighting game, you know, you're gonna have some level of anxiety because you gotta pay attention to what's coming up. Is he gonna do an anti-air? Is he gonna do a jump in? Is he gonna come forward with, like on the ground, play footsies? Is he gonna shimmy throw me? Like there are a lot of things you have to worry about at once, and they're present worries. Like it might happen in the near future, within the next few seconds. So that's useful anxiety. But it can paralyze you too. So you want to be in like you were saying earlier, an open state of mind, an open state of awareness where you can feel the emotion, let it flow through you, give you the useful information at the time that it needs to be felt and given to you, and then release it. And I think the release is the part that people don't always do very well.
Coach,
What's up, man?
can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
So, have you ever had a song that you listen to whenever you're in a certain emotional state? Let's say, like you're angry or you're sad, and you always go back to that song.
I can't say it's ever been like emotional state, but there has been times where I've done it, so it might have been tied to an emotional state and I didn't realize.
Right. Now, have you ever taken that same track that's made you emotional? Let's say angry in this situation, has made you so it gets you hyper, but you're more so angry, more so ready to fight. Have you ever taken that same song on a day where you're like joyous and or if any song where you've taken that same one emotion and listened to that song on a different emotion?
I can't say I've done that.
So it's a very hard thing to do, but and it's that kind of ties into what I asked that question because the release date of that Tricky
Yeah.
just mentioned. Um, so to even before we even get to that release date, there's something that has to happen to kind of like I guess help monitor or help coach people. And it's what I just said, it's coaching. Coaching can kind of help with that release date. Um, a lot of people, of course, they might not see the mistakes or why they made those mistakes, and it'll take them out of their element of how they approach things. But then with coaching, it kind of pushes them into that release state to the point where it's like, okay, you made this decision, it's not the end of the world, you can fight through it, um, but it's going to be hard. And that's what coaching is, and that's what I personally see a lack in the fighting game community. And it seems like it's been kind of like people look at it sideways because we all know fighting games is a one-on-one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I first started going to more tournaments and started seeing more people who are with teams starting to slowly coach each other, I noticed a big difference, and I was seeing better results because that player that's sitting down, as good as they can't control everything in that moment all the time, especially when they go against somebody who's their caliber in pools. there has to be a breaking point. There has to be something that tilts something in either their favor. So that's what coaching helps. It helps to release that. Um, it helps them find their worth. That emotional state is very hard to get to. I've been practicing more positive energy because recently, not too long ago, I was actually getting too involved into just like negative stuff in terms of like things affecting me in the news and tragic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was starting to tell people about it all the time. And I was noticing how it was affecting them. And it was, going back to me, it was reciprocal. And I was like, oh, man, the universe is not responding like well to me on this. So maybe I need to, like you said earlier, find every 3, 4 good things for every 1 or 2 bad things.
Yeah.
And I started doing that and I noticed a difference. Um, and that's what I mean with the when listening to a track. Um, it's like reading a book and somebody else interprets it different. When you listen to that track, that track that makes you sad, maybe on a joyous day it doesn't make you sad. Maybe the flow of it, the track is just like how the words conjunction or with the overall sound, the instrumentals, and how everything just flows together. Maybe now you're able to see that, and you're able to take yourself into that release state, and you're not sad. You can appreciate the song for what it is instead of its sad emotional state. And it's not an easy thing to do. It is really not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, uh, that musical example I think is pretty good in that like sometimes you can use music like uh well when I think in terms of fighting games, I use music as a way to hype myself up because when you talk about performing well like in a tournament specifically or just any kind of performance, there's the like what we call psychological arousal and performance. So those two things are like key. So and how much psychological arousal you need to perform at your best differs based on how expert you are at that task. So when you're not like that good at a thing, your arousal level, you could think of it as anxiety or just hype or whatever but like a lot of people will experience it as anxiety until they learn to identify what it actually is. And it's just like your brain's just ready to go, and it's ready to go in any way, any direction, but it's ready to go somewhere. And it's up to you to decide how you want to release or engage that that your brain being ready to pounce. And when you're less skilled at a task, you're it takes less anxiety to be in your peak performance state. But as you become more and more expert at something, you, you can't be too relaxed to perform at your best. You need to have some pressure applied. So when you think about this coaching, right? The coach, I feel like, is trying to get you into that optimal state. If you're too relaxed, like, hey, get your head in the game, man. Focus. What are you doing? But if they see you're too like tense, too tight, they'll come over to your corner and be like, yo, bro. Like give you a little massage in the shoulders, say, bro, just relax, just breathe, man. Just breathe. You got this. Just calm down. And I've had people do that to me when I was like winter brawl way back. Like we're talking like almost 10 years ago now. Actually, I was at a tournament and I was fighting against some folks might know Rodney, and he was using his Kage. I still remember the fight, and like this was when I hadn't beaten him yet in a tournament setting at all at this time. I don't know whether I won the set or not, but that round, Sid Kid, because he was one of my boys, he like put his hands on my shoulders, like, bro, just breathe, bro, just breathe, relax, chill out, you got this. And and like I did way better after he like said, hey, just relax, chill, like you're fine. Uh, another instance where I was getting coached, um, and like that's all he had to say. He didn't have to tell me what to do. Just need to say, dude, just take a chill. Uh, Interestingly enough, it was Rodney. So during Zega Cup 2013, this is when we a lot more coaching ended up happening in the scene. Um, him and GT would actually give me a lot of advice, like between my tournament sets. Cause that was like my first real big tournament, so I was really nervous, and they helped me like not miss things that I should be doing or would normally do. They help again also calm me down in the like during a set. It was super. I mean, until I got to them, and then they're like, "All right, I'm not telling you nothing now. You know, if you're gonna get anxious, and that's good, it's gonna help teach you." But I think you're right in that, like in the scene, we need to look at coaching in another way, in a more like positive light, and like welcome it.
Yeah, and now it's even harder with social media. It's a lot of energy is just stored in without people seeing what you're going through. So like, yeah, I, j- yeah, I just lost this match online. This person doesn't know that I like that was a mistake that I made. And so much factors go into it now. So it's definitely harder now, but I do think it's still possible. Maybe like I said, you can go on Twitter or maybe like, Discord or even close friends. It actually doesn't even have to be social media. Close friends and talking to them and just like, they can help with anything out even outside of gaming, right? That's why some people they like even though we live in this pandemic now, seeing friends it's just been, you know, such a blessing for some people because we haven't seen them in such a long time. So if you can just like try to see your friends, because it's it's a huge difference, and if they play fighting games they also will like, look, they'll just reiterate or remind you and be like, look, you're not as bad as you think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, the whole thing about coaching is reminding me something. Just like in general, having somebody who's just not you, like standing outside and just telling you something can just be huge. Because back when Zerd was popping and we're playing along my local scene, and I always like, just in general, I don't think of myself as a person with like heavy emotions, but I found out that it actually wasn't true. I just never really expressed them. I kept them inside, and they were happening, and I was just pretending they weren't. But that's something I kind of realized later in my adult life, and that made my life better. But I'll bypass that. But anyways, I was still kind of in this state where I'm not really an emotional person. I'm kind of cool under pressure. I really wasn't. But I was playing versus Doki Sandwich's Elf. He was just beating my Faust, and at the time, like this is like before she got all of her nerfs in Rev. He was just beating me and beating me, and I don't get mad at losing, actually, believe it or not. But I guess I was getting hot on the call. I didn't even notice, and then at the end of the set, he looked at me and goes, "You kind of angry, aren't you?" And I stopped. I'm like, "What made me think I was angry?" Because I
Yeah.
mean, I don't really talk when I play anyway, but I guess I was just giving off like that mood, and I realized I was getting angry because I could not figure out how to stop this because I'm like you said, a lot of people, everyone has an ego, and I guess my ego was always rooted in that I know stuff or I can figure out stuff, and I couldn't figure this out, and I was getting heated, I guess, without realizing, and he pointed it out, and at the time I was like, I don't think so, but when I got home, I started thinking about it, and more, I'm like, maybe I was angry, and if he hadn't said anything, I would not have realized that that was making me actually angry and like tilted me off. Because like as I started to think about it, I started becoming less angry about it, ironically, thinking just acknowledging that I was angry to begin with. And then I started looking at, and I turned on the game and I started looking at Elfeld again. Like this character, she's still strong, she still does these things, but I started looking at stuff that I did not look at before because like there's things like straightforward situations I could not win, but I could take like these small subtle approaches to like mitigate her or to get away from her and do better. But those things were just outside of what I was able to see because I was actually angry and didn't realize it. But when I stopped being angry, I'm like, I don't have to be there. I can do this. I can do that. And then just him pointing that out as an outsider and just like, I guess realizing that from my play or my body language or whatever made me really think about that. And it pulled me out of myself just from somebody mentioning it. And it made me even look at objective facts even better as things that I just could not see for whatever reason were just like blindingly obvious to me now. So that's just the kind of thing that I think like coaching or just in general, like Casey said, just talking to people helps a lot. But at the same time, like you were talking about the feedback loop, some people just kind of like you try to encourage them and then it just like sets their loop over and over again. And so they get into the habit of I call them Discord walls. So like they'll get out of a set and then they'll post the whole thing about how worthless they are because like you were saying earlier, I didn't do that combo, I missed that anti-air, and then somebody will, and then your friends, they like you, they think highly of you generally, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they'll come in there and be like, hey man, it ain't like that. You're doing well. Just keep practicing this, and if you have any questions, and then they go back to the loop. Nah, nah, nah. I tried that, or this doesn't work. I'm never gonna be able to do it. And then you start pulling other people in, and that kind of goes to back what Casey was saying is that everybody starts getting negative then, and then
Yeah.
everyone starts spiraling together, and it's hard to like pull somebody out of that. Like I think you were mentioning talk therapy,
Yeah.
and I guess if you don't know how to do that, then sometimes you can just like send somebody further down with just well intentions. So like,
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say you're sending them down. You're just seeing them going down. Like like you're seeing it happening. And if you're someone's friend, so it's this is the tricky part because like there's what you do as a friend, what you do as professional, right? So for me, um, being in the professional capacity, uh, I would say like, well, I think everyone can benefit from talk therapy. Like straight up, it's like optimizing your brain for your life. Like I can't speak any more highly about it than that. Um, and then if someone's like stuck in that loop and they're just like spiraling down, I think the best thing you can do for someone is to try and be like, bro, like this maybe I don't know. Have you thought about this maybe thing? Like if you're close up with that person, to be able to be the one who maybe helps them make that step for themselves, because it's life changing. It's absolutely life changing, especially if you're in that cycle already mentally. To have
right,
someone in your life to be the one to push you, like to help push you out of it,
that makes
because
sense.
you can't always you can't help everyone, actually, and if you try to too hard, they can pull you down with them. Uh, like in a regular relationship, right? Not professional one, but like as a friend
Hmm.
who's or like as someone as an acquaintance or as like a disc like this person on Discord because you are in the same Discord calls or whatever, but you don't know them like that, right? And you're trying to be like, hey, maybe don't beat yourself up so hard. Like, no, you're good, you're all right. But they keep being like, no, 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 I'm worth it. They keep going down that line. Um, there's not much you can do about that other than just do what you did and just kind of like back off and just hope they get better about it.
Yeah, the only thing I see that can make it better, slightly better, is giving that tone. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I said it's meeting, meeting up with finding a way to meet up with your friends at some point. Whether it's like a place to, at their place or some small place. I do hiking sometimes, and I'll sometimes like, meet up with my friends that way.
Yeah.
And it's just finding a way for them to hear that tone, to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Or and it doesn't even have to be me. You could just find a way to talk to them even over through the phone. Um, just somebody hearing your voice is a very, very powerful thing because setting the tone can help set their mood, and it lets you know it gives them feedback on
Mm-hmm.
where you are at on how you understand them. So that way, when you do respond, they understand that there's that you understand there's empathy there. So it's and even then when you what you just said about like it would drag you down, um
Yeah.
you can't let it emotionally take you away too.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah, like there's definitely been times where I'm like, I gotta put my foot down. Like it's been enough, and you still gotta be accepting. Like, look, I understand this, and I get that you're upset, frustrated, and you can't figure your way out, but you can't just. Well, I don't say can't just, but like if you keep spamming, this wall of text every time you feel upset at a fighting game, you're just gonna restart this over and over again. I'm just bluntly telling you this that you need to find something different, or pointing out that I can't just constantly how can I put this? I can't feed into it, I guess. Like I'll point out that you're wrong, you're not worthless and all that, but if I sit here for hours in this text wall with everybody else with you, I feel like it ultimately doesn't always help. You need somebody to kind of be blunt with you sometimes, I think. What do you think about that?
Well, like that. So, like, I think you're both talking about like two different situations, right? And every situation is unique and different, right? Um, and so, like, one of the situations is this is the person you know really well enough that like you'd hang out in person, you got their number, you'd call them, and be like, "Yo, what's up?" Like that person, yeah, you can probably just call them up, maybe when they've cooled down, be like, "Hey, dude, like, are you all right? Like, you were kind of going off the other day or whatever." You can check on them later when they're not like so psychologically aroused, right? Activated is the other word you can use here, and just let them relax, give them a second, cause they'll cool off, and then reach out back out to them, be like, hey, yo, bro, how you doing, man? And check them out. Um, and if it's like a pattern, like they're constantly like wilding out, and it's becoming a problem. I mean, if you have a good relationship with that person, tell them like, dude, like what like what's going on? Because normally there's something else going on when that's the case. It's normally not about the game. It's about like something going on in their actual life. You'll like 9 out of 10 times find that there's like something in their personal life has gone really astray, and they're really struggling with it, and it's being taken out on players in the game or in the community, and that's where you get a lot of toxicity. I think actually, when that kind of stuff happens in a way that's not very healthy. Um, so there's that situation. But then there's the other situation where like this dude puts walls of text on on Discord and is saying how I'm worthless and I'm terrible, I'm the worst, and does it every single time they lose a set, and you try to pull them out, like, no, you're not worthless, you're not the worst, and these are the ways in which you're not. For that kind of player, it, and let's say you don't know them as well, right? As well as the other person who you can just call them like, hey, yo, what's going on, man? Like, I get it. I get you're upset, but like, you're not bad. Like, I know you're not bad. Um, do you not know you're not bad? And then that's where the question to me becomes, well, why are you playing this game? Um, what's your reason for playing? And if your reason to play is because you feel worthless as a person, and you're using the game as a way to feel like you're worth something, to gain a sense of self, um, then yeah, every time you lose or every time you don't do as well as you feel like you should, you're gonna feel that way every single time. Um, so you have to feel enough, regardless of what happens in the game, regardless of what happens in your life. You have to like actually believe that you are worthy of feeling good. You are worth all the good things that come towards you. And if bad things happen, that doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means shit happens sometimes. And you know,
Yeah. Oh man, I'm actually really glad you pointed out some of that stuff because like one of the common things that does happen is I'm like, I'll ask about like for example, like with the fighting, I'm like, have you ever sat down and like learned a skill or saw a project through to completion or something like that, like you make you feel accomplished at all in life, like even little things, and they go, I don't know. But
Yeah.
we do those things all the time. I think Casey pointed it out. Like if you learn to drive, learn to ride a bike, but you don't think about those things. And but you do have that power within you. But if you don't believe in it, it's just gonna be a spiral. But another thing you pointed out was is like expecting like how you interpret good things and bad things like because one of my friends he streams Guilty Gear, he'll know who I'm talking about, and I'm not gonna say your name, but he would always play on stream and he'd be like, oh man, I jumped and they always beat me, or I always drop this combo, or I always do this, and then like 2 seconds after he says it, he'll hit that combo, he'll hit that anti-air, but he literally just will not notice it. Or if and
Mm.
when I point it out, do you know what he says?
What?
Oh, well, I just got lucky, or I didn't know what I was doing and it just worked.
Oh,
But
damn.
but when they're bad decisions, what does he say? Oh, well, I made that decision. That was bad. That was wrong. So in the case of good things, people like when they get in that spiral, it feels like they don't take into account their own agency, and they'll think it's just happening to them. But when something's wrong, it's something that they deliberately did and put into motion that was bad because they're bad, and they fully accept their agency in that case instead of just in both cases, or they won't look at bad things as bad luck.
Right. Right. Well, that's confirmation bias. Well, what we would call confirmation bias. So like the inherent belief about the self is that I'm bad. So I'm only going to pay and when you have that inherent belief about yourself, you're going to look for information in your environment that confirms that belief. So if you made a wrong decision, yeah, that was me. That was totally me. Made a right decision? I don't know. That was just lucky. That was just random. I didn't really mean to do that. And despite what you tell the person, you can tell them all the stuff you want, but until that inherent core belief about themselves changes, it's going to bounce off of them. So the 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 workaround for that is can be not always, because everyone's different, and how you address it with different people is going to be individualized. But a general kind of thing could be like watch your videos back and don't discount your wins or your good reads. You anti-air that person? Yeah, I meant to anti-air that person. Or you're like, oh well, it was random. I didn't think about anti-airing them. Even better, because that means you instinctively anti-aired. It's even better than making a choice, because your body just saw like, oh, he's in the air. I'm gonna hit the anti-air now. Boom, you just did it. No thought required. It's even better. So yeah, like hold on to that and really own not just your in matches, but your decisions that were correct or the right choice in that situation. Don't discount it.
Right. I like that reframing. Oh
Mm-hmm.
man. I guess not to take up too much of the time, but I guess there was another thing that you said like really early on about the ego, and that's something that still that stands out to me. And I think like even like people who like are super self-deprecating, or people who are like, I guess I'll just say arrogant, everyone kind of
Mm-hmm.
has that ego. And even though you don't think too highly of yourself, you get into that match and your ego has some expectations that you're going to
Mm-hmm.
perform, that you're smarter than somebody else. Even if you have that belief about yourself, your ego somewhat doesn't seem to care. And so I feel
Nope, it
like
doesn't.
I feel like this. So like, yeah, I'm not an expert like you, but like this is just my observations. Is like even the people who self-deprecate don't think highly of themselves have that ego raging and still thinks that it should perform, and then that disconnect like puts them in this weird state.
Yeah, and even so, so those two people you just described are actually far more similar than they are different. That person who goes into a fight super arrogant, like yeah, I'm gonna, and like super arrogant, not like in a demonstrable way where they're just trying to like put on a show, where it's like clearly putting on a show. You got those folks too, but like a person who actually believes their own hype, where like yeah, I'm the best, ain't nobody ever gonna beat me, and they go into a fight. That person is protecting their ego in the same way that the person who's going in saying, I'm never gonna win. I'm bad and like like I can't beat this person. and whatever. Like the person who thinks they're gonna lose 100% and the person who thinks they're gonna win 100%, they're the same person in terms of how they're relating to their ego. They're trying to protect themselves. They're trying to protect their sense of self by either shielding themselves with arrogance, with a sense of I'm too powerful to lose, and if I do lose, well, my controller wasn't working, or uh, the scrub quote, the scrub prayer, I think it's called, or scrub quotes prayer of like all the different reasons why my loss wasn't a real loss. Like that arrogant person will use those, and then the player who and it will hamper and stunt their growth as a player too, right? That's the other part of it, because you're thinking about being competitive. If you're not being honest with yourself, both for the arrogant person with your mistakes, then you are not going to grow. You just won't. And for the other player who's like, I'm horrible, I'm trash, and I'm never gonna get any better, and I'm gonna lose this set every time. Uh, that person, well, they're a little more in touch with their like ego because they don't feel like they're good, and they probably don't feel like they're good, and they're not protecting themselves. But they're protecting themselves from the potential negative outcome by saying to themselves, the outcome's already predetermined. I'm going to lose. I'm going to go into this fight expecting to lose. And if you go into a fight expecting to lose, you're probably going to lose. You can't go into a fight expecting to lose. Like you've already lost at that point. And for that person, they're going to hyperfixate on all the things they did wrong because it's just going to confirm their belief about how bad they are. So for them, I'd be like, yo, dude, look at every little tiny thing you did that was right. If you block the mix up, great, good job. Now it might feel pedantic. It might feel like you're babying someone when you do that. But when you're talking about your ego, um, ego don't care. Like ego is fragile. Ego needs to be nurtured and babied in a lot of ways because it's not. It's from my theoretical orientation, what I'm talking about from this point of view, because there are many ways to think about this, but the way I do is the ego's like that child version of you, that version of you that was like weak and scared and couldn't really protect itself. Um, so the ego tends to be fairly fragile, like the actual true ego. And part of becoming emotionally mature and strong is kind of helping that child grow up. Because you're not a kid anymore, you're an adult, but you're still relating to yourself like you did when you were a kid. So, what's really helpful is sometimes one technique, which I think coaching kind of can sometimes fulfill that role, is you can imagine like an older version of yourself talking to your present self. Like, what would me 10 years from now, who's been playing this game for 10 more years than I have right now, who's way better than I am right now, what would he tell me? What do I wish that person could tell that scared ego version of me today that's too afraid of losing or too afraid of the possibility of losing to even contemplate that I might win, that I might do well? For that person who's just thinking, I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose. For that person who's overly boastful and using that to protect themselves from the sense that they might lose because they're still afraid of the same thing. And it's being done in a way that almost like 80% of the time prevents their growth or slows their growth because they're going to be missing things that they could be paying attention to. What could the 10-year from the future version of them that's gotten way better, what could they tell you today so that you can kind of age up your child like ego to being more like an adult that's more resilient and stronger and can handle things and has handled things? You're still here, right? Like you're still alive. You're still a person today. You've
Man,
grown up.
Don't,
that was pretty intense.
man. Look, man. He's been going for school for this, and he's been learning this for years. I It's I did not expect anything less than this. This was He's brilliant. You're
Thank
brilliant,
you.
Tricky.
I
Um,
appreciate. That's why I play Eileen. Monkey Girl. Play Eileen, everyone.
it all comes back. I feel like you're the both pictures. Have you seen the picture of Virgil versus the Iron Man player? The Virgil player versus the Iron Man player?
No, I haven't. That sounds like no.
So you
What?
just ended up. So basically, it's Virgil. The Iron Man player is doing all this thinking, and he has all these like equations going in his head, and Virgil's just pressing one button. His eyes is like cross-eyed. I feel like you were both of those players, and one.
Yeah, man. Guy, do those numbers. I do the calculation before the between the sets, and then I become one button man when I'm playing.
I always I always thought of it. The training mode, the numbers. Those are your katas and karate or whatever your forms, and
Mm-hmm.
then like the actual fight. That's you applying what you learned, but it's not gonna always apply one to one. Sometimes you'll be a little too far away for those frames to matter, or you'll hit the button at the wrong time, and some things that you won't expect to happen. So like what you do is you build your basis, and then
Yeah,
you operate off that basis, but you accept that you're not gonna just like be going at 100%.
yeah, dude. That's see that right there. That idea, accepting that you won't always be 100%. That's the adult version of you, man. Being like, yo, yeah. While the kid version is gonna say, no, I have to 100% all the time, all the time. And it's like, no, bro, that's not how the world works. Like, and that's sometimes what you gotta tell your little ego self, who's in there screaming their heads off.
A release state, man. You're not gonna always be in that same emotion all the time.
Yeah, man.
I li- I, lo-
Yeah.
I love that. I love that metaphor because when you said that, I thought of like a baby doesn't know how
Yes.
to communicate and it screams, and then when it screams, it gets its diaper changed, it gets
Yeah.
fed, it gets an immediate consequence for the
Mm-hmm.
screaming. But and then when you get older though, it's like you can't scream for what you want. So like in a fighting
Mm-hmm.
game, you'll sit there and practice that combo, but then it's like I don't want to try it, I might drop it, or
Yep.
you try it and drop it, and then you get discouraged, or someone goes, if you want to fight this character, use this counter, and you use that counter, but that person happens to know, and then they beat you. Like, oh, that doesn't work, because all that is just you screaming and then saying,
Yes.
it should work. And in
Yes.
reality, you got to go, okay, well, I did it and it didn't work. What is the situation? What is the situation? You pull back, like you said, look at your matches. Oh, in this
Mm-hmm.
case, that character, this person is specifically standing in a place where they don't get countered by it because they accept that it's strong. And then when you look in your matches, you see where it hits. They go, oh, they were a little closer and they were being more risky. So that's why people tell me to use that tool. And so when you start looking at it objectively, understanding the properties of what you're doing, it takes away a lot of your frustration because you understand the initial action and the result of it based on what two people are doing. And when you understand it, you get less frustrated by it, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. A lack of understanding is one of the roots of frustration and anger. You know, like um, thinking of X-Men and like how like humans who hate mutants hate them because they like don't understand them or they fear them, right? And like it's not that different from when you're in a game. You're like, I hate this situation. I hate this character because they do this bull crap that it's not right. But like really, it's down to like you don't understand how to manage that situation, and so you hate the character, or you hate the situation. But if you gain more understanding, you may still not like it, but like maybe you don't have to hate it. Hate's a pretty strong feeling, you know. Um,
Area I see this happen a lot with every fighting game, with pretty much every player, honestly, is when they play a character and they see somebody else play their character, and they
mhm.
see how they don't play their character quote unquote correctly. There's no one way to really play a character. There's always multiple ways, and there are people out there that's showing you that. And no matter how good or how bad they are, just watch them and take what you can get. You it's not you might learn something. You
You
most likely
will.
will learn
Yeah, you
something.
will. The uh, a lot of my VF heads will know this. Like, the, I'm known for using Eileen's 9K or her or like 9000K, because I used to just spam it like all the time. And um, I didn't invent that. I got that from this Eileen player called Green Tea, because I was fighting against him early on in FS days, and he played Eileen also. He was new to playing her, and he just kept throwing that move out, and it was blowing me up. And I'm like, dude, this shouldn't be working. This is bullcrap. And then I started trying it. It's like, oh shit. And then I started applying it in a more I guess measured way, because I was playing the game a lot longer than this person had, but they stumbled upon something that I hadn't even tried to think about, and I was able to take it and make it even better for my own play style. So yeah, man, and you learn from anyone, everyone, of all skills. That's going
I'll
back
point
to
to
the
that.
ego.
Yeah, cause like I used to be that like when early on in Exeter when I was playing Faust, I was like, if it's not Nage or like the two other big files, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it, cause I just assume like they're not gonna show me anything worthwhile. But there's two sides of this. One, like you said, anyone can show you something, and they might even do it by accident, or they might do it and then it'll be like brilliant, and you just didn't think of
Hmm.
it. And then there's the other side of it is the against like the really powerful players, people are gonna play in a measured way because they're afraid of things that that person will actually never do, because there's a mutual understanding that you know how to use these tools and I know how to play around these tools, so you're not going to do them, but just in case you do them. And then there's like a lot of stuff that doesn't happen, but then you look
Hmm.
at intermediate, you start learning more and more interactions and why people should or shouldn't do things, and even beginner matches. So like, yeah, you can definitely learn from any level if you just honestly take a look at it and don't like get too judgmental.
Yeah, don't get too focused on, well, they should be playing this way. Well, is it working for them? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, then perhaps a different way of looking at this is warranted. You know, that's how I try to view it.
Yeah, and take even their losses with a grain of salt, right? Even if they're
Hmm.
playing like to not your liking and they lose, that doesn't mean you're just like you can't take what they've done, in terms of the information that they have that information there. You just got to be able to like, take your ego self out of there and just like look at what they did. And they probably weren't playing the best. Most likely was not playing their best.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, man, playing one's best is like, I'll say, what does it even mean to play your best? Because you're never playing at your 100% best. You can always try play to create situations so that you can play close to your best, but I feel like we're always trying to play our best, but never quite being that.
Yeah, like I think like I remember watching this old video from an old Street Fighter 2 player, and he's like, the main goal you want to do is bring up your worst performance and your best performance and move them up as high as possible, so that when
Yeah.
you are playing at your worst, you're still pretty good. But when you're playing at your best, you're like phenomenal. Like I've experienced that one time where it was at final round, and I was playing Street Fighter 4, and I was playing against a ball walk player, and at the time I was playing Dudley. And I struggle versus Balrog all the time because his pokes are better reach and all that stuff. But I've always practiced all that stuff and how to like counter poke, how to punish, how to like react to stuff. But like when I would get in a match, all that stuff would overwhelm me, and I would be like mediocre at it. But that one day, and I'll never forget this. Like this dude, every time he did a dash punch, my throw was ready, my DP was ready. I was ultraing stuff on reaction. I was anti-airing and hitting all my combos. All my meaties were on time, and I just demolished this guy. And I was like, at the end of it, I didn't even remember most of it. It's just like my fingers just like, you chill out, buddy. We'll do the rest. And I don't know how to get back into that state, but I remember that state just being like all the stuff that I always grinded and practiced, but could never quite do in matches. My hands just did it, and I wasn't thinking about it, and it was it was an amazing feeling actually.
That's flow, man. You were in flow state right there.
Yep.
Um, I'm I don't know if the viewers know what flow state is. Do, do one of y'all want to tell them, or should I tell them? How,
Go ahead, man.
Um, Go ahead, man. I've been following it, and I've been like very. I watched a lot of Bruce Lee's, like his talks and interviews and everything. And his the recent documentary they did about him, the 30 for 30 documentary that they did on Netflix,
I gotta
was it
watch that.
Netflix? No, I think it's 30 for 30 is for ESPN. Yes. No, it's
Okay.
pretty good. Yeah, definitely recommend that. But he doesn't go. He talks about flow, but in a different way without saying flow. Um, TLDR. He was one time on a boat, and he was so frustrated with martial arts at the time, and he punched uh, the water. And this, I don't know if people will catch on to this or not, but once he punched the water, that's when he noticed. That's where his whole term "be like water" came from, because he was so into trying to be this one thing for martial arts. When he punched the water, he was like, "Whoa, wait, water can flow and be anything. It can
It can
go into
crash. It
yeah,
can
it can
flow. You put water in the cup, it becomes the cup.
the
You
cup
put water in the
exactly.
teapot, it becomes the
It's a
teapot.
teacup. Yep.
Yep.
And when he said that, when he first punched the water and he noticed that like that's it clicked for me, because I've heard him say that quote before, but I really didn't understand it until he said when he punched the water, that's when it hit him. And yeah, but no, you can go and hit and explain flow. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, shoot, I think you already did a great job. This idea that like you're going off of that punching the water, you know, and then like connecting flow to an emotional state is that when you punch that water, the water takes the energy in and dissipates it, and then it and also shoots it back out. If it's like an ocean, you don't see where the energy comes back out because it's just so large. But if it's like a small puddle of water, like a bucket of water, you make a big splash. So that that energy you just put into the bucket of water just got back at you, and now you're all wet, right? So I guess that metaphor didn't work so well at the end.
No. Like the state that coach was in, it was the flow is what all the repetition and everything he's done, because you see it in basketball players. Basketball players actually talk about it quite often. If you ever ask them for like any huge tips,
Mhm.
um, they'll be like, there's a state that they're reached for. They're not really thinking about too much. They're not thinking too hard about what's supposed to be going on. At that point, they're just playing, and they're playing their role. They're doing their part and trying to do their best to play their part. If it works out, cool. If it doesn't, well, they're able to, since they're at a flow and they're not thinking about too much, they can now think about their mistakes easier.
Yeah, you're more aware of what's happening. I mean, in some ways, it's like a Zen centered state. It's kind of how I try to induce it for myself. I try to meditate during a set or even before a set so that I'm mentally grounded and centered and able to receive. I only do this for like really important sets, really, where I'm more likely to feel emotions that are going to be strong and it might unbalance me in a way so that I'm less responsive and available to receive information, because that's really what can happen. That flow state is when you are relaxed, you're doing all the things you need to do, you're responding the proper way, all the things you practiced are just coming out because you've drilled them in. So you it's hard to get into flow state during a match if you haven't sufficiently practiced the different components that you need to execute during a match. So you can reach flow state in dojo mode, just practicing by just doing the same drill over and over again. That's why I love drills, actually. Like I love coming up with new ways to drill in dojo mode because it helps me get into flow state while training. And then if I can do that, or when I do that, that makes it all the more easier to enter flow state during a match because those same situations are going to come up. And now instead of thinking, oh, well, this person did that and I'm going to do this and that, you're just responding to this person did this, boom, I've already done it. I've already done the next thing because I'm in that perfect state of mind. It's so much fun to play in that state too. I chase it.
I think we all do, man. I
Yep.
think we all try to taste that state. But coach, what you was about to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
At this point, we all like agree, and you're done a fantastic job with with psychology and everything, man. And I've learned so much just by listening
Yeah.
to you.
Same here.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you all for inviting me back. And I this connection of mental health and fighting games specifically is actually uh, a thing that I am developing a more like coherent theory of. Actually,
Hmm.
it's an area of my research. So yeah, I really believe that the the process of becoming stronger at a game requires, specifically a fighting game, but probably I'm sure it's true for other games too, um, requires a certain level of introspection about yourself that is not so dissimilar to the kind of introspection that I find my patients go through when I'm doing therapy with them. So I believe there's a way to like when you're fighting someone in a game, right? You can kind of tell when your opponent's pissed off. You kind of know. You don't they don't have to say anything. You just know they're kind of mad, or you know they're afraid right now, or you know they're like anxious or they're timid. You can just kind of like feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, that is another thing, another process that also happens in therapy. You can feel when someone's upset, even they don't tell you. Like there are things being said that aren't being communicated with words. And then the best part, so after you fight your set with your boy, and like you notice they're afraid, or you notice that they're angry or whatever, and then you talk about the set, right? I found this happen a lot when I was playing offline in the New York scene. We'd be playing sets, a long set, and then we'd talk about the set, or we would just talk, and then it almost always ended up going into some deeper stuff about like our lives, and like we got to really know each other really well, but like we would sit down, play the game, and then we'd talk about the game, and then we'd talk about our lives and like deep stuff going on about our lives. So I feel like for some folks, using the fighting game could be a way to connect themselves to their emotions more quickly, or certain emotions might be more difficult. And then you can use that as a way to process more deeply their feelings and thoughts around these difficult topics or issues that they might be grappling with. That's my theory. I gotta test it out. That's the idea. Put it out there on your podcast first.
All right, man. When you hit it big, we can cite this in your academic paper.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do like the idea that playing in a 1v1 scenario in a limited system where the tools are predefined is a good medium to have a conversation with another human being, because I feel like a lot of people who fall into these kind of traps, they forget that they're playing a human being who can
yeah,
think and feel like just like them. And I feel like when you kind of come to understand that, you start understanding people who do all kinds of things and how they play. Like you said, you'll start noticing when they get angry. You might start noticing when you get angry, because that's
yeah.
that's sometimes that's even harder than seeing someone else's anger.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, like treating the games as a conversation, as a way to relate yourself to someone else, and understanding that, yeah, I'm fighting a human being and I'm communicating with them via this method, and they're doing the same. I think that can be a way to make it more healthy as well.
yeah, yeah. It's and that's where like the game starts to develop a level of meaning that approaches like a martial art practice to me, um, where it's like part of martial arts is, the physical training and the physical dexterity and the mastery, but the other part of it is like this self discovery and self knowledge that comes from training, from communing with other partners.
Man, you guys just made me thought of some real anime protagonist and side character type stuff. So you know how like, and it actually is within fighting games. You know how Ryu and Ken, when they fight each other, they have the smile on their faces and they're all
Hmm.
cool. Another good example now, at least, when Goku and Vegeta fight each other, they have like the smile, the smirks on their faces. It's like you get that. I don't know if you probably definitely probably got this before, but you're playing somebody and you're both in the flow state and you're both just doing everything right and understanding the mistakes too, and you compliment each other. Not like sometimes, yeah, we compliment each other, vocally, but through in the game, you compliment each other by the way you move, the way
Yeah.
you approach things, and it becomes like such a thing to. It's so hard to explain, and I'm so happy I'm able to explain it now. I'm so happy because it's such a hard thing to explain to people, even outside of fighting games. That state is so beautiful, and I'm so happy I got the opportunity to finally explain it. It's so beautiful though.
Yeah, you got it out, man. It's like when you start getting to that unconscious mode and you start nodding your head like, yeah, man, you did that. And I fell for it. Okay. And, you don't feel bad about it or mad. You're like, that
Exactly.
that was cool. You did
Yeah.
that to me.
And it stays at that consistent level and you're like, whoa, like, and it does, and for anybody who's listening to this, it doesn't have to be at the highest level of a fighting game, honestly.
Yep.
It can be at the lowest level. You both cannot know anything, but you both can know something about like, each other and the moment and what's going on. And then that's when that state hits. And you're not really talking to each other. You're just like, oh, the the energy is felt. It's like good energy felt. And it's such a good feeling, man. It's
It's almost like there's a gratitude in the fight, in the skill, in the power of your opponent, and it's not a like, damn, they hit me with that bull crap. It's like, no, man, they hit me with that really hard thing, a really awesome thing, and that was dope. And like, I'm glad I got to be a part of that process, right?
Yep, yep. And then you walk away and you get out, and here's the part that really sucks. You get out and you look around and everybody else is like doing their own thing. But then you talk about the match with your friend or whatever who you play with. You're like, yo, good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's and I think that's how you can cultivate that positive mental state, right? When you're playing these games. And I think that's what contributes to like, in this conversation we've been talking about how kind of having a positive mental state leads to player growth, right? Um, and kind of, I think we're also kind of saying that, well, if you don't do those things, then you won't grow as a player. And I don't want to have that message also communicated either. It's more about rate. Like, you may not grow at the same rate you would with a more positive mental state. Sure, negative states can lead to productive states, like skill growth too. But like the question is at what cost, like to yourself, to your own mental health, and to the people around you too. Like there are costs associated with that. So if if someone's listening is feeling like, hey, I need to keep this version of me. I need to keep this to motivate myself, because if I don't, then I'll just get lazy or complacent. Um, I'll challenge you to, like, nah, try it, give it a shot. You might surprise yourself, and if it doesn't work, then sure, fine, throw it out. Doesn't work for you, don't use it. But you might find you like it. It might work out really well for you.
Nice, nice. Challenge yourself. Those are two words that can get you through a lot in life.
Hmm.
Like actually, funny enough, we started talking about like the group dynamics and stuff like that. Because I remember Jucito Brown, he put a Twitter question to us. It was like, the impact of sparring training groups. And I think we just talked about that.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and he's like talked about, and he asked us to talk about how the past year like may have changed the dynamics. And Casey kind of talked about that. So yeah, we talked about like it is important to have people like a good group of people who can like push you up and help you out, and people you can do the same for, people you can just like you said, communicate through the game. And yeah, things switching to online probably affected a lot of people in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, last time I was on here, I was chatting with you about how Parsec was becoming a thing for VF scene, and that was like brand new. And now it's been quite a while since it's been almost a year or a long time. I don't know how long it's been. Uh, we've been playing on Parsec for a minute, and we've created VF Parsec Discord rooms where it's basically like an arcade where like there's one Discord channel that's called Bacha Arcade. And if there is an arcade happening, any kind of Parsec lobby, it's open. We just go in there and just chat. And you can chat about the game, or you can just chat about whatever. And sometimes it's just a bunch of folks getting together who are like, on their lunch break or at work, and they got a long shift. They'll just hop in while the rest of us are playing and just kind of commune with us. And I feel like that's and I've also noticed the players who've been engaging with these smaller Discord call communities have been growing at a very fast rate as well. So, and I think part of that is um, at least the Discord communities that I'm a part of that I stay engaged with are positive. Like we're all positive amongst each other. We don't really tear each other down. That's not like our MO. It's like, oh, you trash. No, man, you did good. That was nice. That was dope. That was a good thing. That positive like Goku Vegeta smirk of yeah, that was nice. Do that again. I think that really helps.
So what you got in mind, Casey?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yo, man, that's it. Like, don't just set yourself up to win because hell, set yourself up to fail. So set yourself up to know you can win and fail. To know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to find enjoyment out of winning. Like one thing I personally suggest to a lot of people, especially when they get obsessed with winning over people, is like, you complain that you can't hit this anti or can't hit this combo. Well, make that the game.
Right.
Yeah, can I hit this combo every time? Can I hit this anti every time? If they do this move that I have trouble punishing, can I punish it every time? And make that your fun. Make that what you try to achieve, and you'll find that you'll naturally start winning.
Yeah, just shift the goal from because sometimes winning's too big of a goal. It's too large, and you can forget that to win requires a lot of smaller wins. Like, did you block that sweep attack? And okay, great, you blocked it. Cool. Now, did you also punish it properly after you blocked it? Um, are you still see how many times you can do that in a match against a real opponent who's good, right? Um, I if I'm finding someone who's really like a lot better than I am, I don't try to win. I just try to do as much damage as I can to them. And if I happen to win, that's awesome. But or if a KO winning state uh, um, presents itself as an opportunity, I will gladly take it. But I, I I no longer just focus on like winning. It's more of I'm gonna play the best I can, and even if I lose, I have I record everything. I have a video to go back and look at. Okay, how did I lose? How did I do well? And how can I create more situations that I do well in the future next time?
Where um I feel like we hit like a lot of real big points. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we
yeah,
did.
yeah, Tricky led the way, and we put some good stuff out there. Um, how about this? How about this? What is what out of everything we talk about? What are your top 3 points that you want someone to take away from this, Tricky?
Yeah. Well, so first one is, I mean, I always have to give a shout out for not only Eileen but also for mental health generally. And like, if you have insurance and they provide, like sessions, like therapy sessions, you you don't know if you haven't done it yet. You don't know how helpful it's going to be. It's not just for folks who are quote unquote crazy. It's for everybody, and like, really everyone can benefit from it. It's so useful. Um, Second thing, um, if we could, like in the comment, not the comment, but like in the maybe in the details, put a link. Like there's always, if you're in crisis, right? If you're in a crisis situation and you feel like, you need help immediately, there are numbers you can call. So I'd like to have that like in the as a resource for folks in the details. But y'all will see that. I'll give you all the information for that one, so you can just like have it there. It's 24 hours national service. You can just call them anytime. Those are the big ones. And then the other one is like, don't beat yourself up, y'all. Like, you're good. You're better than you think. Most of you probably are better than you think you are. And if you happen to be in the other category where you're pretending you're better than you are, I know you, and I know you really think you're trash. So you're in the same situation as the other person, but you just don't look it, right? So y'all are both in the same boat, and just remember that when you look back at your matches, if you look at them, if you happen to record them, because video recordings are a lot easier nowadays than they were in the past, focus on what you did right 3 times more than the things you did wrong. Don't ignore the things you did wrong, but don't discount your wins, your correct choices. And it's fine to spend 3 times more time of your time focusing on that, on the things you're doing right, than the things you're doing wrong. Because I'm sure you're doing way more things right than you are wrong. And you can just do more of that in the future. Um, the very, very, very last thing I'll say is remember what your reason for remember what your reason for playing is, and try to make sure it's a healthy reason. Um, if you find that your reasons for playing is because you feel like other parts of your life aren't doing so well, and this is like your one area that is giving you a sense of meaning and purpose, I'm glad you have found something that does that. Now, if your only joy from this thing you found to be purposeful for you is winning, then I would encourage you to find other aspects of this activity that gives you joy and fulfillment, because that can lead you down some very dark paths, if that's the only thing you have. And try to cultivate, your community. Try to cultivate your Discord community, because we're in COVID and we all are stuck doing things virtually. Um, you can still have a community even if you're not physically together, and I think that'll be helpful to everyone's mental state. I'll end on that one.
All right, thank you, Casey. What are your closing remarks, man?
Uh, Tricky pretty much hit all my points. So I kind of pretty much say the same thing as him. But I'll just say, I guess, even outside of gaming, life can only hit you with so much, right? Especially people in life, no matter how rich they are, they can only buy so much. You know, it's you at the end of the day. You know, don't put yourself in a state for where you're too pressured for things in life. Walk before you run. It's so cliched, but like, you don't run out of bed. You don't run to get to the toothbrush. You don't, you could probably if like, something is going on real quick, but for the most part, you don't do that every day. So yeah, just take things slowly. Time will come and tell. And yeah, just you know how you can approach things and continue to learn new things. I can't express that enough. And also, um, yeah, you can only do so much. People can only do so much in life. So don't get intimidated by what other people do. You do you. And people who love you will love for what you do. Love you for what you do. So
Preach.
that's about it. No.
I guess I'll say like mainly to reiterate, being honest with yourself is really important. Like what you feel, how you're feeling it, and how you deal with it. The things you do right, things you do wrong, all that stuff. And even like to extend that concept of being honest, sometimes you may not win as much as you do, but a lot of people in this community have a lot of friends. Just surrounded by good people. They've had good experiences, and don't those are wins, you know. And
Mm.
don't like you know. I've seen people say stuff like, I if I can't win a major, or if I can't get top eight, or if I don't win versus this, what's the point of it all? Oh, look, you got five people you could call. You've met maybe you've got a job because of this community, or you just in general you have people to talk to every single day. That's something a lot of people don't have, and that's something valuable you can do. So make sure you look at all the things that are valuable from the experience that you got from joining this community and playing these games, not just playing them.
That's right.
But other than that, I got nothing to say, and
Boom.
I definitely appreciate you fine gentlemen on here with me again, especially you Tricky coming here with the expertise and teaching us a lot, and hopefully those who listen. So I think this is our longest episode yet. So there's a lot of good content in here, and I hope all of you managed to make it to the end. I know that's not realistic, but I imagine
Look,
a
you
lot
can
of
break it up in parts, just like the DC movie, the Justice
Part
League movie.
one.
You can break. Yeah, this is Snyder, right? You know, just you can break
now,
it up in
now I'm
parts.
giving them the whole cut. I'm just slapping it right on the table. But this has been one of my favorite episodes, just because one, I've learned a lot, and even as Tricky was explaining stuff, I'm like, there are things I can do better. There are things that I need to look in within myself. So, the next game I want to compete in, there's things I want to look at and take advantage of. But yeah, I really love doing this episode. It was a lot of fun. So I hope you all enjoyed as well.
Thanks for having me, man. Good,
Thank
good
you,
topic. Good conversation.
thank you, Tricky.
Yep,
You the best, man.
yep,
Y'all,
yep.
y'all are awesome.
Indeed. I really wanted an episode on mental health because I don't see a lot of that mental side of fighting games. So hopefully this can be the start of stuff like that. So, but other than that, I'm gonna say peace out.
Peace.
Peace.